Hello, I'm John J. Thompson, and on this episode of the True Tunes podcast, I'm very excited to bring you a conversation with one of my favorite artists and an old friend, Chris Taylor. Chris and I go way back, almost to the beginning of the original True Tunes about 35 years ago, when he sent one of his early demo cassettes to us, a project called Chris Taylor and Windows, if I recall correctly. I wrote a short review in the magazine, and then he sent me a thank you note on behalf of himself and his bandmate, another Texas kid named Matt Slocum, in the form of a small poster that was half photo, half illustration. I still have that piece of art, and I'll show it to you in the show notes. Chris was part of a very cool, creative community in the San Antonio area, and we at True Tunes did whatever we could to put wind in their sails. A couple of years later, we helped release the first album by Chris and Matt's band Love Coma, Soul Rash, on our little indie label, Etc. Records. A few years later, the company that Chris was signed to ended up buying True Tunes, and we were in cahoots again. And along the way, Chris has become an accomplished visual artist as well. You may have even seen his work used as covers for some episodes of the podcast here. And I had him create a poster we called Jesus Rocker of a long blonde-haired musician to use as an art piece in the Electric Jesus movie when we could not get permission to use a Larry Norman poster. And as you heard on our recent episode, it was a Chris Taylor painting commissioned by Steve Hindalong that was used as the cover art for the Choir's album Translucent.
Out of bed to begin the night, 12 a.m. everything's alright. There ain't nowhere new to go in downtown San Antonio. Get in the car, everything's alright. My dancing shoes get no rub, but I just found my ticket stub to the Bleeding Hearts Club.
A few years ago, I happened to be in Austin on a night when Chris was performing at a local venue, and I got to see his set. He combined spoken word, projected images, paintings on easels, and what we might consider standard guitar, vocal, singer, songwriter, folk rock. It was so cool to see all of Chris's artistic impulses colliding on stage like that.
When the sun goes down, he unveils your picture in the sky. And the moon rises, she lights up your silhouette eyes. And the birds release their favorite midnight songs. It's only then do I find tomorrow takes too long.
Basically, Chris and I have been rowing in the same creative direction for decades. He's been on this show before, most notably as a guest on the Bruce Cockburn episode, but we have yet to feature him on a show of his own until now.
Don't love your mommy, don't love your dad, don't love your granny or your comrade, don't love your dog or your favorite baseball team. Beware of love, no matter how it seems. This is how to avoid a broken heart.
A couple of weeks ago, Chris surprised us with the release of his new solo album, I Carry the Flame. And though it is definitely a Chris Taylor album, it features prominent contributions by friends like Matt Slocum, Phil Madeira, Steve Hindalong, Lee Nash, and others. It's probably the best sounding Chris Taylor album yet. I've been talking with my students a lot about artistic lifers, those people who just keep going and going, regardless of commercial success or the lack thereof. We often find ourselves pondering things like the nature of art and creativity and how it might change or evolve when we as artists move toward or away from commercial viability. We'll talk about it all and a lot more right after we take care of a little bit of housekeeping.
Hey, this is Ray, and I'm a Patreon supporter of the True Tunes podcast. If you want to join me and the other supporters of this show, you can start with a monthly donation of $5, $10, or $20, which helps to cover the cost of producing and hosting the show. As a thanks for our support, we get early access to episodes and high-quality, lossless WAV files of each episode that we can download. We also have occasional Zoom meetups, some special live streams, discounts on True Tunes swag, and more. You can join me by visiting patreon.com/TrueTunes or finding the link on the show notes page. If an ongoing patronage thing is not the right fit for you, but you'd like to give us a tip to help with the cost associated with this show, you can find links for that on the show notes page. Thanks.
And we're back with painter, poet, songwriter, and singer Chris Taylor. Man, Chris Taylor, thank you for taking a few minutes to hang out.
I love it, man. I just love talking with you.
I heard this new record, actually. Shell and I just drove up to Chicago and back. And at some point, obviously, the Love Coma stuff, I've heard everything. I've got the big wooden box set of the...
Oh, yeah, the Lovers Thieves, yeah.
I got that in my office at the school. I show my students that every semester, actually. This record just enchanted me from the beginning, and so I thought, well, I want to talk about that. There's a couple other things I've been wanting to ask you about. So
for sure.
So first of all, how are you?
Man, I'm all right. I'm not doing badly, and I'm not
kicking ass.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't feel. I've over the last. Gosh, over a year now, a year and a couple of months, I got myself a proper job, which is what any man should do when facing, financial turmoil or whatever. So, and so I've been working for a hospital in the sub levels of a hospital, and basically put stuff away all the time. So, the big 18-wheeler trucks come in with all the food for the hospital, and I'm part of a small crew of guys who put that stuff away. And so I'm either spending my mornings in a bunch of freezers or, and then later on in the afternoon, I'm just sweating it out in the hallways. And so I come home and I'm just exhausted all the time.
Right.
I can't remember the last time I was not exhausted. But with that said, I've been fortunate enough to live the majority of my adult life as an artist, as a sort of, I wake up in the morning and drink my coffee and, think of things to art.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's a multidisciplinary artist life you've done.
Yeah. So to go from that world into this sort of corporate structured and, I work in a beehive. I'm part of a small crew, but the hospital is huge and there's just, it's everything I'm not. It's like, you're never alone. You never have time to actually think.
Right.
You're just moving and going, which beats a desk job for me, for sure.
Yeah.
But so all that to say, it's done a weird trip on my mind, and making this record was sort of my saving grace, through all this insanity, to know that I could spend a few days in the studio every couple of months and really just fully focus on making something that I freaking love, and making it with people that I love. That's everything.
I love the light, I love the dark, I love the way they dance around the armor of my heart. I am a dreamer and a work of art. I need you to stay and dance around the armor of my heart. Casting shadows over sorrows and songs, flare up like a flame, a dream once lost. No feeling is final, no water is free. Don't let yourself lose me.
So this is different because you were working a full-time, physically demanding job and then coming away from that to focus on. That is different. And it's interesting because listening to it, I'm thinking there's a level of attention to detail that's jumping out at me that feels different. I felt it in the last Love Coma record too. Like in the production, in the execution, this sounds like you're really focused on dialing in something pretty darn near flawless. Like you're going for real detail on this thing.
Yeah.
Which is different for you. So
very
do you
different.
think that that's because of the change of focus for you?
I think there's a couple reasons. Yes, to answer your question. And then I also found the perfect production team. And that team is myself, my good friend Chris Dodds, who a lot of people might know as the drummer for Love Coma, but he's so much more than that. He's a very opinionated drummer for Love Coma.
That's true.
And
I remember that.
And he was as passionate about this project as I was from the get-go. He was never just, I'm going to come in and play drums on your record. I wanted him and I wanted his opinion. And then we have Pat Mansky, who he works at the Zone Recording Studios in Dripping Springs, Texas, and he's an engineer and he's a young guy. He's kind of cut from the same cloth, and he works really fast. And I love that because I work really fast. And I found it really fascinating because I would go, basically I started this record at home at my house. And then I brought everything that I recorded into the studio. And when I already told myself, I'm going to keep my mouth shut until I feel like it's veering off the overall direction I wanted it to go in. And so I was kind of waiting. I had my little mental notes. I was going to tell Pat, like, hey, in this section I'm and in this section I really want to. And I found that Pat, without me even saying anything, just kind of already knew. Or he would make suggestions, like we'd be 13 seconds into a song and he'd be like, okay, I'm kind of getting bored right here. And I'm like, how are you're bored? We're only 13 seconds in. But he made me realize that it's like, oh yeah, all along the way, there should be like a little spice, a couple measures in, maybe add something right here or take something away right there. And it just, it was so exciting to kind of go, oh, this is great. And so between the three of us, we really saw this whole project through. And I was able to focus on, here's what I want the album to feel like when it's all said and done. And then I had Dodds focus on, okay, on the hi-hat or on this, or on the violin, there's this decibel that it's driving me crazy. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I can't, that's like way beyond, it's like a dog whistle or something. It's way beyond my sensibilities. But to have a team that is very passionate about what we're all up to in the studio and can capture it and get into the minutia of things to where it's the burden's not all on me. It's thrilling.
You see, I want it all. I want everything. The darkness that comes with the fall, the blaze of glory when I sing. But it's down to the wire, my desire, through the amplifier, let the healing begin. Direction.
Between myself and Chris and Pat, we feel really connected in what we're doing. And then just the amount of musicians that sort of came out of the woodwork to say, I want to be a part of this. I really want to be a part of this. That is thrilling, because it would not have been the same record if Matt Slocum didn't fly down several times with his cello,
Right.
or Steve Hindalong tag along and say, man, I want in,
Yeah.
and you're like, what in the world? So
Phil
I can't.
Madeira, I think I saw Madeira's
Phil,
name on it.
yeah. There's some of these players that have been around my life since I was a teenager that I would have never thought in a million years they would, because however much I wanted to be part of that group of musicians when I was a younger guy, I never really was, even though I was on the outskirts of a lot of that, working with Michael Rowe back in the 90s. And I was sort of on the edge of all of that stuff, but I was still sort of the younger guy coming up, and I never really fit into the whole scene,
Right.
or at least I didn't feel like it.
Right. Now, Slocum's different. I mean,
Slocum is different.
I've got evidence of that.
But at the same time, he's gone on and lived a whole other lifetime that I have not been a part of. But our friendship has stayed intact all these years. He's the same. He's got the same big, lovable heart as he always had, and so our friendship's always been there. But I don't take that for granted. Just because we're friends, that doesn't mean I would think he's going to fly down to, Texas and play on my record, and put as much into it as he did. So all of these things are such like I'm humbled by it all, and I'm thrilled by it all. And every person added their spice on this album. And it could have, with the amount of people and vocalists on this record, it could have easily gotten out of hand. And because every musician that was in there is very opinionated and knows what they want to do. And I'm like, I started these songs at my house, and I knew right as I was building them what kind of record I wanted to make, and I didn't want it to get out of hand, because it could anybody could have came in and played something amazing, but it might not have been right it might not have been right just for my own mentality and my own approach. So the fact that I felt like everyone added something, and at the end of the day, it was really my call as whether we were going to keep it or not. And I'm like, man, everyone just played beautifully. And I'm like, the rewards are in the listen. Even I love to drive around listening to this record.
That's pretty rare.
And that's very rare for me. I usually, when something's done, I'm like, all right, I'm on to the next thing. You guys hear it, and I'm already like 10 songs into the next record,
Owless can't believe her eyes. Are you a wolf or in disguise? How did you become so wise? Are all these lies that you despise? The wolf, tongue of icy blue, speaks words so soft, yet so true. Amidst the liars and the wicked kings, people do the most beautiful thing. Answers to the secrets of our heart.
So what would you say, is there a song on this that when you captured it, or either when you wrote it or when you started to record it, you were like, okay, now I feel like the DNA of this project, I'm starting to get the compass is starting to lock in for me and I kind of know where I'm going?
I would say right off the bat, for me anyway, it's a song called Fool to the Drug of Love. And I knew when I stumbled upon, because I played the string section on a little keyboard trying to figure out, and this is before I knew Matt was ever going to come in and play cello on it. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, how in my own little world with one microphone and a laptop am I going to capture what I'm hearing in my what I'm hearing in my head? I don't even have a proper recording studio at my house. So I'm the minute I stumbled upon this sort of fake keyboard string section, I knew that there was something special there, even at that stage. And I had written this chorus, I'm just a fool to the drug of love. And I wasn't even really sure where I was going with that lyrically. But then towards the end of that song, there are these counter melodies that I sing that says, fear comes in the morning without warning. I wish I could hold you now. And it became like this really beautiful, I can't even really, it's so funny. I've never talked about these songs before. I've just sort of created them and put it out. And upon completion of the sort of the beginnings of that song, I knew there was something special about it. And with the strings, it felt kind of mature. It didn't feel like I was playing a rock and roll. I felt like I was making something that, 15, 20 years from now, somebody could still press play on and go, oh, that's beautiful sounding. Because it's the cellos, it's like an orchestration, and it never gets old.
Keep the wolf from the door, be ready for anything. Some things I can't see coming. My heart keeps breaking over the same thing. Some things I can't see coming. I know close to nothing about anything. I wanna feel the magic when I sing. There's a hologram halo hanging over me. There's a cosmic jive as I'm drifting out to sea. I'm a fool to the drug of love. I'm just a fool to the drug of love.
Tell me about one thing. That was one of the first ones that as I was listening to, I went back and I was like, no, I got to listen to this again. And when I went back to listen to the second time, I actually skipped and listened to that one first and then went and listened.
Nice. Oh, man. Thank you. First of all, I got away from picking up the acoustic guitar and to try, because it's all going to be G, C, and D, or A, E, and F sharp minor. It's my old tricks, and I have no new acoustic guitar tricks in the bag. I've worn all the cowboy chords. I haven't even learned any cool versions of chords or anything. So I decided to get away from starting songs with an acoustic guitar and really starting songs with a drum. So I would create these bits of drum loops. Sometimes I would create them from Chris Dodd's. He would send me a bunch of just random drum tracks that he played either with different bands or whatever, and I would cut and paste them into cool. things. And so this song started with a drum loop, this heavy, like boom, boom, ka, boom, boom, kind of a tom-tom snare kind of a thing. And then I just spent some time trying to find like a keyboard tapestry sound that would just sort of evoke a mood or a feel to it. And then I added on top of that these sort of little keyboard string plucks, these boom, 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 boom. And so the minute I got that down, I knew I was onto something. And so at that point, you're like, all right, at least for me, I'm like, how do I not ruin this? Because as of right now, I've got something kind of fun going on. And so I knew my friend Justin Schneider, who's an amazing musician, multi-instrumentalist, but on this album, he plays bass on all the songs. And I knew he was coming by. And I had stumbled on this keyboard part that was sort of like, what do you call it? It's an arpeggiator. You just hold down the chord. It's and so I had that in there, but I wasn't sure about it. But I liked it. It was sort of down in the bass register. And so when Justin came by, I had this idea. I said, Justin, listen to this keyboard part and then play your bass to it. But no, I'm going to take that keyboard part away. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And so he just immediately started playing this killer groove along with a syncopated keyboard part. And when I took that keyboard part away, it was like, oh, the bass track is so killer. And that's when I knew there was a song there. Like I knew it. And so then lyrically, it took me a while to figure out where I was going with it. But I kept on, I had this MC Escher book, and I would kept on returning back to this book. And I remember loving him as a kid and just being mind blown by all his crazy pieces. And for the way my weird, wonderful mind works is that somehow I related that to what's inside of my mind, my chaotic thoughts and the inner rooms of my mind and heart, and and the strange angles of it all. And I started just to realize it's like, none of that matters. And I was starting to think about, my relationship with my wife, Catherine. And I was like, none of that matters. All of the chaos and what I believe and don't believe and all, whichever way the wind blows or whatever new information comes my way, all that matters is the love I have for Catherine. Like she's the one thing that I need to kind of make it in this life. And so that was sort of my road into that song. I don't know how you get MC Escher and my love for my woman and all that stuff mashed up into one, but yeah.
100 rooms inside my mind. I decide to pack my bags. I know I'll be checking out. I know I'll be leaving. 1,000 things inside those rooms I decide to leave behind. I know I don't need a thing. My mind blown to smithereens. You're the one thing that I need. You're the one thing that I need.
The title track, I Carry the Flame. Usually when we choose a song to represent it and be the title, it means something. So tell me about the song, how it came together, but also why choose this one as it does seem a little bit sarcastic to me. It feels like a little bit tongue-in-cheek,
Oh, it's very, yeah. I'm so glad you picked up on that. Okay, so how do I possibly even explain this and not waste 45 minutes on your...
Well, good thing is Bruce knows how to edit really well.
Yeah. Bruce will edit, be like, dun. Thank you, Chris. It was a great time talking to you. My sense of humor is very wicked and warped, and the majority of things that offend people don't really offend me. It takes a lot to offend me. So I tend to laugh at a lot of crazy, off-colored, wild, weird stuff. So with that said, I've never really put a lot of humor into my songs because my humor is like, hey, when you're sitting around with your close friends and you're talking, that's where my humor comes out. I've never tried to put any sort of wit or anything in any of my music for some crazy reason, which is weird because I love to laugh. And anyways, so I decided I was going to do this thing where like basically, hey, I'm going to tell everybody kind of like I'm the shit. I'm hot stuff. Everybody knows it. Just ask anyone. They'll tell you I'm the guy. Which, if anybody really knows me, that's not the way I think at all. I mean, the reality is I've always been the opening band, never been the head, always the bridesmaid and never the bride, kind of a thing.
Right.
So I get it. I'm at a very clear understanding of where I'm at in my artistic and creative life. But I just thought, how great would it be to just have nothing but like 30 verses of anyone I could think of. The girl at the gas pump, the guy with the knee, with the hammer, the kid with bad grammar.
Ask anybody.
Ask anybody. They will tell you I carry the flame. And then it started off like that. And I wrote the whole song as if it was just a big inside joke to myself and maybe a couple of friends that know me. And then the more I listened to it, it was in different stages of being completed. And the more I listened to it, it sort of got turned on its head. And it was almost like, no, wait, Chris, you have been given this gift and you do carry the flame. You carry the flame of artistic expression. You carry the flame of inner freedom, where a lot of musicians or artists don't have that. They feel compelled to write what other people want to hear or whatever the case is. And I'm like, I was making this record for me. And I don't know if 10 people are going to buy it. And I'm not writing it. I'm not doing it for those 10 people. I'm doing it all completely for me. But at the same time, I put it into the world and hope for the best, So that became the title track because it became so important to me. Like, the flame is a gift, and I don't know why I'm even aware that I have it. And I'm not the only one that has it. There are lots and lots of people that have that flame, man. And not only musicians and artists, but people all walks of life doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm just very, very grateful.
Alligator Frank will tell you, a man Puerto Rican will tell you, the dog and the girl at the gas pump will tell you the same. The guy with the sneeze, the woman with dirty knees, everyone will tell you that I carry the flame. The girl with the cocaine, she wouldn't tell me her name, but even she would tell you that I carry the flame. Blonde taking bribes will tell you, thief doing time will tell you, all my friends black or white, they'll tell you the same. Even the district attorney, the hero on the long journey, everyone will tell you that I carry the flame.
I think we'll step away from this wonderful conversation with Chris for just a bit and crank up the old True Tunes Jukebox. It's been a while, hasn't it? You've heard us talk about Matt Slocum and Lee Nash, and they, along with original drummer Dale Baker and longtime bassist Justin Carey, just released a new Sixpence None The Richer EP called Rosemary Hill. Along with T-Bone Burnett's The Other Side and Nick Cave's Wild God, Sixpence's EP landed right at the top of my list of favorite sets of 2024. So I thought, since we were already hanging out around the San Antonio area, we could pop this vinyl in the jukebox and take a listen. I've got a token from the Alamo here. Let me drop it in the slot and see what happens. There's quite a saga behind the making of this EP, and we won't get into all of that right now. But suffice it to say, drama has almost always hovered around this band and their projects. Their most recent album before this was 2012's Lost in Translation, a great collection of songs that kind of snuck into the world with little to no fanfare. This time, though, the band was really back, including Dale Baker, and after some early recording struggles, they finished this EP with Steve Hindalong's production help and were happy enough with the results to mount a major tour to support it.
Okay, roll back the footage, I need to see it again. Blank space, all but forgotten where my darkest secrets been. Okay, did you see me falter, lose my rhythm and time? Looking for signs in the eye of the storm. I'm gonna thread the needle above the wind and rain. Gonna soar like an eagle when the bullets fly. Gonna dodge like Leo through the eye of the storm. I'm gonna thread the needle.
The EP opens with the driving, optimistic, aspirational sound of Thread the Needle, a shimmering burst of old-school Sixpence that combines Slocum's brilliant alternative pop songcraft with Lee Nash's graceful vocal. Placing this track first is a brilliant move. It's hooky enough, tight enough, and radio-friendly enough, especially if the listener happened to come of age in the era when Sixpence burst through to capture the attention of even the most casual fan. But the lyric lays the group's ambition right out there for all to see, to get this show back on the road in a way that will live up not only to their fans' expectations, but their own. The beauty of Sixpence's music is always in their ability to combine brainy alternative rock and radio-ready ear candy. Throw in the added dimension of spiritual resonance and existential tension, and the needle becomes three-dimensional indeed. This song, a rare Slocum-Nash co-write, is certainly a high point in their catalog.
When they sent you to Chicago, you had high hopes. Thought your dad could pull it together for once. But all the helium in the world couldn't keep your hopes high. He had problems of his own. He let your dreams die. Julia, nowhere that hurt out of sight. Everybody sees a fawn with the headlights in her eyes. Julia, the book isn't written yet. The pages are bare. All your dreams are still in there.
Next up is Julia, a driving rocker penned by Lee and Anna Voss that perfectly combines a very specific story of one person's challenged upbringing as the child of divorce with a universal invitation for all of us to write our own story in the aftermath of brokenness. Julia also demonstrates that Lee Nash has become an exceptional songwriter. In the early days of Sixpence, it was Slocum's job to write the songs and Lee's job to sing them. Now, with two strong writers in the group, the fabric is that much more interwoven.
We are love. In the dead of winter, it's still 95. Inside moves out, the out moves inside. Honeybee cluster, the heat of the hive. We are love, we can make it. We're a chain, you can't break it. The long darkness had a run, but hey, here comes the sun. We are love, we can take it.
The third track, We Are Love, may be the album's musical, lyrical, and spiritual thesis statement. It channels the best elements of Sixpence's dense, cascading, muscular sound, with layers of lush guitars and Lee's angelic voice delivering lyrics crafted by Slocum and Steve Hindalong. Yes, We Are Love, but this is not the merely affectionate love of a top 40 song. This is the kind of love that bleeds.
I see you now, and I love the sight. We made it through, we did alright. I couldn't give up control, but in the end, I had learned it all. Did it really matter at all? I had a vision, I had a plan. In the beginning, you were the child in the man. I couldn't give up control, but in the end, I had learned it all. Did it really matter at all? I had a vision.
Child and Man, a co-write between Slocum and Sam Ashworth, slows things down a bit, lulling listeners into letting their guard down a bit. Lurking just beyond the second chorus, however, right as more of Slocum's tube amp guitars wash over us, is the kind of realization about parents, children, failure, and grace that only come with gray hair and tears.
Explosions in the sky, vibration on the strings, shaking sand-worn boards of a dance hall in full swing. In music from the ground are songs that we all sing. The longing lost and found is what it means to be from my homeland.
Homeland picks the musical and emotional pace back up with a 6/8 burst of self-aware nostalgia, perfectly anchored in Slocum and Nash's Texas roots, with references to everything from nature to those amazing dance halls, and even a nod to the Austin post-rock band Explosions in the Sky. The tune dances us into the band's romantic center for what feels like the best, most productive kind of memory exercise. This kind of meditation provides centering and balance, not a longing for escape.
Maybe you've fallen down Rosemary Hill. It took layers off my skin, lots of blood that I spilled. I kissed a boy at the bottom, then I ran to the top. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it might pop all over Rosemary Hill.
The set closes with a tune that continues the theme of memory. Rosemary Hill, named for an actual hill in the childhood neighborhood Nash and Slocum shared in New Braunfels, Texas. The song feels more reflective, even a bit mournful, bringing that beautifully sad sound we loved about Sixpence, but radio listeners never really got to hear. It seems Rosemary Hill hurt kids in lots of ways, some on their bikes or skateboards, some through first kisses, but it stands as a monument for the things that didn't kill us, but made us stronger.
That was a long time ago. That was a long
And just like that, this 6-song EP is over. With Steve Hindalong's help, Matt Slocum, Lee Nash, Justin Carey, and Dale Baker. Oh yes, please notice how significant Baker's contributions here are. I'm not sure most of us appreciated how much a part of Sixpence's sound his musical drumming was, and now is. But after just 6 songs, the experience fades and we are left wanting more. Hopefully the band's successful tour has been enough to encourage them to stay on course with this reboot, because these songs reveal something very special. It's rare enough for young people to find the necessary chemistry and talent to craft the kind of wonder that Sixpence did in their heyday. It's much rarer for truly exceptional artists to break through into the mainstream with multiple hits the way they did. But very few survive that machine long enough to get to the 4th and 5th gear, that zone in which they can craft transcendent art as fully formed adults with nothing left to lose.
I know you wanna sleep right through the morning. Wake up when you're safe on the other side. Sometimes the tide comes without a warning, but you're safe inside. I know you wanna sleep right through the morning. Wake up when you're on the safer side. Sometimes the tide comes without a warning, but you're safe inside. You're safe inside. You're safe.
More of my conversation with Chris Taylor in just a moment.
Hey there, I'm Mark Feldbush and I'm a Patreon backer of the True Tunes podcast, and I follow and listen to the weekly Spotify Gallery Stage mixtape that John curates for us every week. I get to hear classic artists that I really dig and discover new artists. Every week, usually on Wednesdays, the mix is updated with around 40 songs from brand new releases to deep cuts and from across a wide range of genres including rock, Americana, indie, gospel, blues, sacred music, soul, and so much more. It's also great to hear a mix that blends up great music that is just good, beautiful, and true without all of the genre and market limitations and boxes I hear everywhere else. You can find the mix on the front page at truetunes.com or on the show notes page for this episode. And if you follow it, it will live there in your Spotify browser and update automatically each week. And don't miss the massive archive list where all previous lists get saved. And as great as Spotify is for music discovery, please support the artists you love once you hear and discover them there. Thanks.
And now back to my conversation with Chris Taylor.
Sagittarius summer is upon us all. My galactic center now a big black hole. I wish I could let you in under my skin. I wish I could let you in. How to begin? But it's all I can do to make the feeling show.
So I want to transition a little bit because in addition to music, you're an accomplished visual artist. Your illustrations, your paintings, you just did the album cover painting for the choir's Translucent record,
Yeah.
which is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Now, what percentage, roughly, how much of your creative energy is going into visual arts compared to music over, say, the last 20 years?
Oh my goodness. I kind of strike when the iron is hot, and sometimes I'm not too busy like playing live shows or whatever. Like right now I'm in sort of a live show lull. there's not a whole lot going on for me in terms of playing live. But when that happens, instead of getting sort of frustrated about why am I not, all you have to do is scroll through Instagram for 3 minutes and you're like, why am I not doing what they get to do, or, whatever.
Right.
And so I just sort of get those thoughts out of my head, and that allows me to stay. I'm like, okay, I'm home. What do I have here at the house? And so it allows me to pick up a paintbrush or take out my iPad and start doing digital stuff, or I'm finding a lot of ways, to just sort of create something. And a lot of it people have not seen. I haven't really put it into the world, and some of it I have. And then other times, like, getting a chance to make this record, my focus is like super crystal clear on like, all right now it's time to just make the album and focus on music. So, man, it's hard to say how much of my time is put into it. I know I've got 2 art projects I'm currently working on right now from people who have said, hey, I really would love for you to, do this or do that. So right now it's kind of, now that the album is done and I'm able to kind of sit back, and even though I have song ideas constantly flooding my brain, I'm kind of like, I'm not worried about that. The great thing about like even this record took years, just because we were going into an actual recording studio. So it was about saving up money to get into that studio and just being patient, not feel like you have to get something out tomorrow night. So I'm not so worried about capturing everything now. Now I'm just kind of like resting in the fact that I can just either just doodle without having to worry about it becoming a piece of art, or I can strum on the guitar without having to worry about it becoming a song, and it'll all come in its own, in time.
This world needs a prolonged attack of compassion. Hatred and violence are now back in fashion. If I'm so toxic, then you're toxic too. We were stuck together with some kind of toxic glue. Now it's time to cut and run. We're done.
With you being a lifer, doing this for so long, I kind of file you in my mind in the best example of the outsider artists. You're not making core commercial art. Coke isn't going to hire you to paint polar bears on a, Christmas mural or something like that. You've got your style and your substance, and sometimes it has a clear kind of message to it, and sometimes it's just a vibe or something like that. But it's definitely a Chris Taylor kind of look. And then I looked at the painting on the cover of the Choir record, and I wouldn't have known that was a Chris Taylor. Right? It's very different.
Yeah.
So I'm going, that's beautiful, and totally not the Chris Taylor look. When I'm listening to this music, I'm going, this is really well produced, and it's got that Chris Taylor DNA, but there's also kind of a different structure. At times it feels like he's actually put himself into some boundaries a little bit and doing something a little bit more quote unquote normal, like compared to some of your stuff, and it's working really well. I just wonder, in your mind, like, is this just totally fluid and reacting and you're not conscious of it? Or do you kind of think, I'm gonna blend, I'm gonna channel my creativity to serve this output? I have an intentionality to that? Or do you not think that way? Is it just, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna figure out wherever it lands, it lands?
At times, both, but
right.
Specifically, like with the Choir record, I started doing this series called Nature Abstract, and where I would just pick up elements from outside the house.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I would only paint using these materials: leaves, shrubs, brush,
right.
that kind of thing. And so it was, and I did that because I felt like it was like a meditation, like an exercise in meditation for me. I would sit outside, I'd have my easel and my big canvas, and I would do these things. And I was like, oh, one, I'm not inside the house. Two, I'm using natural elements, and even just the water and the paints. And then these materials, no brushes. I would just take these materials and be like, how do I paint with this? Which gets you out of the context of, oh, there's got to be this one focal point or this one image, or there's not a strange looking alien man that I would normally go. That's my go-to. Like, just like G, C, and D on the guitar. Well, my alien face is like, or other people would call it alien face. I would just call it like, people see themselves in a distorted way. So I'm just drawing the way people see themselves,
Sure,
it's like, yeah. So there's that kind of deal. So there's an intentionality when it comes to like, all right, I need to get away from the sort of the safe place that I've been, the go-to, the fallback, and push into new territory, new to me. It's like it's almost like, hey, I don't really do landscapes, but I'm gonna paint with nature. So that's sort of like in the same ballpark, but the results are very different. And so when I did, Steve requested a piece like, hey, can you do, just for his own personal enjoyment to have in his house, he's like, can you do this painting and that kind of in the same series as what you're doing here? And I'm like, oh yeah, I would love to do that. And so when he asked me, it was just like two guys talking. I had no idea it was ever going to end up being an album cover or anything like that. And so much later on, he let me know, yeah, the choir's working on something and this is going to be the album cover. And I was like, just as a fan, and I would like to think we're friends now. And I feel like, oh, how freaking awesome was that? And when it comes to the music side of things, making this record, it's kind of deceptive, because I tell you, there's like 3 or 4 songs on this record that I swear to you is just one chord. I think one thing is one chord.
Yeah.
And what makes it sound like it's 2 is the fact that Justin's saying, no, I'm going to play this note over here. And so he's like...
It's a riff, but it's one chord. Right?
Yeah, and I'm like, who writes 6-minute one chord songs or whatever? Like, it's
Dylan.
just crazy. Yeah. This is my sci-fi Dylan thing.
Right.
So there was that kind of intentionality of like, oh, how now do I intensely focus on creating something really exciting with just this one, like with a drone and an atmosphere. And I realized, and you know what? I realized I learned it from Bill Withers. If you listen to some of the Bill Withers music, there's 2, like, obviously not only a soulful voice and an amazing songwriter, but his drummer and his bass player on any song that's got a groove to it. I'm like, dude, I could hear a song one time and within 3 seconds, I'm already just totally grooving. And I'm like, it's the drum and the bass. Those two, if you get those 2 things right, then you can do almost anything. You can get away with murder on almost anything else, right? So I thank you, Bill Withers and his amazing band. And I'm like, that sparked me to go, okay, I can do a drone, but man, if I have a killer bass and drum groove over the top of that, and then like you add some beautiful female vocals and, you do your best to try to croak out some tunes, there's something to that. So yeah, all of that was very intentional, musically speaking. And I knew just getting away from me picking up that acoustic guitar, it would get me out of my element and into something, I wanted to create an almost like dream trance-like record that was undeniably groovy. And then when Matt came in and put his cellos, and Jesse Green, who works with like the Foo Fighters and Pink and many others. She became a part of this too, and I'm like, now we have this kind of like science fiction meets something very grounded in classical arrangement, and I'm like, man, like it was mind blowing. It was like I knew I wasn't breaking new ground musically, but I knew I was breaking new ground musically for me, and I was like, I got super excited about it, and the best thing in the world is to not think about how anybody else is going to respond to it. It's just like,
so that's just coming from that internal out. I'm putting stuff out there, and I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm not thinking about where this is going to go.
yeah, because I could almost name my entire audience by name. Like I almost know everyone who actually listens to my music, unless there's just somebody out there going, man, I'm a huge fan, but I've never clicked like, and I've never bought a record.
You said I cry like an artist. Your heart is hard, well mine's the hardest. And now I'm laughing like a madman, without a prayer, without a game plan. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. I'm gonna die in my Ferrari, hot chick on my lap and she's playing Atari. I threw my wallet out on the street, gold platform shoes on my feet. My grave is lined with $100 bills. When she licks my ear, she gives me the chills. Taking her with me into the afterlife. Yeah, she gonna be my afterlife wife, oh Lord.
Do you have like an audience for your visual art that's different than your audience for your music, or is it mostly the same, or do they overlap quite a bit?
This is gonna sound, I hope it doesn't sound like a woe is me thing, but I don't know who the heck my audience is. Okay. I mean, with the exception of a handful of people on social media, like I don't really know like who my wider audience is, or even if I have one. And sometimes I get into a headspace where I'm kind of like, I don't get it, So-and-so's over here, and they put out one thing, and boom, it sells, and so-and-so over here, she's doing this really cool thing, and bam, it's sold, or she's in a gallery and it's selling. And I'm like, dang, and I'm in my own little bubble. And this is partly my fault. I'm not out there like hitting the pavement trying to be at all the hot spots, and I'm not into the hustle as much as I used to be. I'm just like sitting back and like Jimmy Abegg told me something years ago, and it was one word. He just said, inventory. I was like, we were specifically talking about creating visual art, and he's like, inventory. It's important. Just create as much art as you possibly can. Have it to do it. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna build the inventory, man, and not worry about hoping this piece sells tomorrow. And I guess, and that's kind of the cool thing about having a day job too, is you're not like so, God, the electricity bill's due on Monday. I really hope this piece sells on Sunday night. Because I've lived that life too.
My screws are loose, I got broken parts, I'm black and blue inside of my heart. Everything begins here. My fuse is short, my inside's out. Don't even know what I'm talking about. Everything begins here. 30 seconds or 30 years, spend my whole life just shifting gears. Everything begins here. My exile on Main Street, self-imposed, walking around in strangers' clothes. Everything begins here. Whoa, a confession of the soul. Wash my sins, rock and roll. Confessions of a soul.
Now, you've been commissioned to do work. Now, it doesn't sound like that's exactly, it's kind of like, sounds like Hindalong was more saying this thing that you're already doing, I would kind of like one of those. but it's not straight up commission. You've been commissioned to do things in the past. So do you feel like as an artist, when you know that there's a market or a demand for a particular project, do you have to engage that differently in your brain, or are you strictly still saying, I'll take your money, I know what you want, but then I'm still going to do exactly what I do? Or do you have to approach that stuff creatively in a different way?
See, I should say that, because I'm like, there's something about, like, if you're wanting me, then you must have seen things that I do inherently. That's me. Even though you're going to have all these opinions on what you think you want from me, I should just do what I do and present it to you. But what happens is they tell me what they want. Most of the time, somebody who wants a commission will say, like, here's what I want and kind of how I want it. And then I freeze and I bash my head against the wall and I hold back tears. And then I cry in the shower and I curse endlessly. And then I repent for my cursing. And then I go, what am I repenting for? I love these words. And then, I always feel like it's like this part me, part, I guess this is what they want. And I never know if they're really happy with it until the check clears. You know what I mean? But I wish I could trust myself enough. And musically, it's never an issue. It's only like visually artistic, that kind of stuff. And I wish I could trust myself to go, let me give you my best. And then when I present it to you, if you go, all right, I love this, but can we change this and this? If that's possible, can we kind of lean more this way or that way? Then I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. But it's when whoever's commissioning me, if they kind of nitpick and detail and micromanage all along the way, then I'm like, oh, this isn't creating art. This is just like, meeting bullet points.
Sometimes the sun shines too bright upon your soul, upon your soul. Sometimes the moonlight won't cover your body whole, your body whole. All you wanna do is slide right down. All you wanna do is slide right down. Sometimes the sun shines too bright upon your soul, upon your soul. Sometimes the moonlight won't cover your body whole, your body whole. All you wanna do is slide right down. All you wanna do is slide right down.
To me, the challenge, especially now as a professor working with students, young people that are just kind of getting going, it is a hard needle to thread to say this is what you want your profession to be, and being aware of who your market is or your audience and what they're going through and where you might meet them. And what, the hardest thing is when someone has a little bit of what they perceive as success, but then they can't replicate it because they don't know what happened. Like they don't know why it worked, and they don't know what the audience loved about them, and they don't even necessarily know who their audience is. So it's nice when it's happening, but they can't make it happen again. Versus when you have an ongoing relationship with people and you're hearing from them and they're hearing from you, and this is more like an artisan as opposed to a pop star. Young people are coming up going, they're gonna have to find an audience of people that care enough about their music to pay for it when they could get it for free, to build a relationship with them. And I think that finding that balance between the internal urge to create something authentic and real with the sensitivity of what is my audience going through and how can I also create something that's meaningful to them, that balance is really tough. You instead kind of double down and go small and create this cottage industry of visual art, music, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And there's an authenticity and a passion and a heart in that I just want to bring up. I hope people are listening to this that are going, who is this guy? Because they're going to hear little clips of music and they're going to go, that's the kind of artist that I want to be.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Working at the hospital, working at the sub level, several times a week at least, I'll be working in the halls, putting away stuff, sweating it out. And all of a sudden, this gurney comes out, and there's someone who just passed away, and they're wheeling it out. They're wheeling them down the same dock that we're going up and down with all of our boxes of food and supplies and stuff. And I'll tell you that has put things into perspective for me in a big way. We're all here for a short time. None of us know when our number's up. So the way I look at it is, while I'm able to, I'm going to try and create all the things that make my heart happy. And if I can do that musically, I'm going to try to create something that makes me want to press play on that record that I just made. And when I create something artistically, I want to keep pushing my own boundaries, learning and discovering and trying and just going for it. There's a lot of time, over the last couple of years when making this record, there's a lot of times I'm going, I wish I never put anything out until right now. And I love everything I've done, even no matter how cringeworthy some of it is. I love it so much. But there's I wish this was my first record. And that if people only press play on one record, I wish this is the one. This is until the next one, of course. And the thing is so we recorded a bunch of material. These are the songs I chose for this project. This sort of nighttime vibey project that, turn your lights out and listen to it as if, it's a musical experience for 57 minutes,
Good night, good night. Don't look down, bless your soul. Good night, you'll be alright, sweetheart. I'll put an orchestra in your head every time you go to bed. Let their sweet, sweet melodies blow your scary memories away.
I want to thank Chris for taking time today, and honestly for all of the other times he has said yes to so many requests. And as I pull out my little soapbox here to wrap this up, I'm thinking about Chris's longevity as an artist, his tenacity, and how we define success when it comes to musicians and visual artists these days. Chris told us that he has taken a day job at a hospital, a straight job, some might say. Now, some artists might consider that some kind of failure. Many feel that if they can't make a living, and a good one at that, strictly through their creative work, then they are somehow not making it artistically. Interestingly, I see this a lot more in other cities, like my former hometown in the Chicago area, than I see it in Nashville, where so many more professional creatives actually live. The way I see it, Chris Taylor, and every artist like him who takes a day job to pay the bills so he or she can continue their creative pursuits on their own terms, is a special kind of success. If Chris had scored a big hit in the past, it might be harder for him to resist the temptation to compare his supposed success now to whatever his previous high point had been. Artists with major hits face this all the time. Instead, I get to hear my friends Chris Taylor and Matt Slocum, along with the help of Chris Dodds and Steve Hindalong and Phil Madeira and others, gathering, creating, and releasing new music into the world after all these years. If that doesn't sound like success to you, I feel bad for you. You might be carrying the wrong flame. All right, I'm climbing off my soapbox now. That's going to do it for this episode of the True Tunes podcast. Thanks again to Chris Taylor for taking time with us and for over 3 decades of friendship and inspiring creativity. I also want to send a special shout out to our Patreon backers. We could not do this without your help and support. If you would like to join the group, head over to patreon.com/truetunes, or if you would like to give us a one-time gift, you can find the PayPal link on the show notes page. Chris and I spent some extra time talking about the new Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, exclusively for our patrons, so I hope you all enjoyed that. And thank you for doing all the other stuff, leaving us the ratings and reviews at Apple Podcasts, signing up for our email list, and subscribing to the weekly Spotify mixtape. And thank you to friends who have helped curate that mix over the last year. And please remember, Spotify and Apple are great places to discover new music, but once you discover an artist that you love, please support those artists with your dollars and your attention. You can also find more about my new book, The Ballad of the Lost Dogs of East Nashville, at lostperros.com. That's LOSTPERROS. And I would love it if you would pick up a copy if you have not already. If you are one of the backers on Kickstarter and you've gotten your copy, I can't wait to hear what you think about it. This podcast was written and produced by me, JJT, with co-production, editing, and sound design by Bruce A. Brown for Gyroscope Productions. Our theme song is a special instrumental mix of Full Circle by Phil Keggy and Rex Paul. The contents of this program are protected by U.S. copyright law and are the intellectual property of Gyroscope Productions, with the exception of songs or clips that are from previously copywritten materials. Everything on this episode is used by permission or under fair use provisions. This program is intended for the private use of our listening audience. Gyroscope Productions can be reached at jjt@truetunes.com or P.O. Box 60401, Nashville, Tennessee 37206. Until next time, this is JJT reminding you to stay tuned and stay true. Peace.